What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad, and it has been a little while since we had anything worthwhile to talk about in terms of Halloween and in relation to Michael Myers. But in the last week or so, there's been some stirring. There's been a little bit of news. I don't even know if I'd even call it news, but there's been a little bit of a story that's come out that's kind of regurgitated all of the love for Halloween 4, all of the hoping from the fandom for something official, an official sequel to Halloween 4, because nobody apparently liked Halloween 5. I actually don't mind Halloween 5. I've always thought that movie was unfairly hated on. Is it one of the best? No. But it's kind of like Halloween Kills or Halloween H2O for me. It's a fun ride, and I can just kind of appreciate it as a fun, silly ride, and it's pretty cool. But Halloween 4 being one of the bigger, more popular entries in the franchise, directed by Dwight Little, people have been wanting a real, quote-unquote, real sequel to Halloween 4 for years. People have been pushing for that. I have my own thoughts on that. I personally, I would like to see it, but I think in terms of general audiences, I think a theatrical release and a theatrical run, and I think doing that as a big, high-budget Hollywood production is kind of out of the question. I don't necessarily think that it's the right time or it's the right move to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see it. I would like to see it. I would love to see what they did, especially if Dwight Little were to come back, if Danielle Harris were to come back, if Ellie Cornell were to come back. Like, who knows, right? But I think there's potential there. But, you know, do you retcon Halloween 5? Do you do something in, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you would go about that. So there's still a lot of questions as to what would happen if you retconned the rest of the franchise, 5, 6, and so on, and then you just made a sequel from Halloween 4. There's a lot of different ways that you could do that. But what got all of these questions stirring was Dwight Little, the director and writer of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, has a new memoir coming out called Still Rolling Inside the Hollywood Dream Factory. And in that memoir, he had expressed his interest and the interviews for that memoir, he has expressed his interest in revisiting Halloween 4. He has just worked with Danielle Harris again on a different project, and like many Halloween fans, he would like another crack at those characters and at that story. And I'll admit, it is one of the better entries of the franchise. When I first became a Halloween fan, and when it sounds like you're like joining a religion or something. When I first joined Halloween, no. But when I first became a Halloween fan, Halloween 4 was a weird bag for me. I wasn't crazy about it. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of like a lukewarm entry. It didn't blow my pants off. But the more and more I've watched it, there's a lot of things I really like about that film. The mask isn't my favorite. It's not my favorite mask of the franchise, although it has grown on me quite a bit. I still think it would have been pretty dope if we would have just went with the bandaged look from the gas station scene when Loomis is trying to track him down. I think that was a pretty sweet look for the shape. And I would have loved to see like that look continue on for the rest of the film, or at least for half of the film, a little bit longer than we got it. But Ellie Cornell's performance is good. Danielle Harris is really good. Like, there's a lot of good things about that film. And I'll admit, I would be intrigued to see where they would go if this were to happen. If we were to say, hey, let's step back, let's revisit Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Let's see where we could go from that point, rather than starting with something new, rather than rebooting the franchise, rather than continuing off of Halloween Ends. I don't know how the hell you would do that. Please no. Don't. Leave it alone. Leave Rob Zombie stuff alone. Leave the trilogy alone. I love all those films, but leave them alone, please. And I'm sure there's a camp of people that is also kind of in the camp of like, leave Halloween 4 alone. It's perfect. It doesn't need to be touched. We don't need anything else. But it has gotten talk over the years. People would love to see another direct sequel to Halloween 4. So let's head over to the Bloody Disgusting article and see what Dwight Little had to say. So, as reported by Bloody Disgusting, the title reads, Dwight Little talks Halloween 4 and new memoir still rolling inside the Hollywood Dream Factory. This was an interview done by Bloody Disgusting by B. Dolores, sorry. There's a picture of Dwight Little on the cover. Let me make this a little bit bigger for us. So the article reads, Dwight Little's legacy falls into one of three categories: horror, action, and TV. From the horror couplet that is Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers and the Robert Englund starring Phantom of the Opera, to the action trilogy Rapid Fire, Marked for Death, and Murder at 1600, as well as his TV work, The X-Files, among his most known projects. Love The X-Files, huge fan of that series. Little has managed to reinvent himself numerous times over his 30-plus year career. And I will say he's a director that he's grown on me a lot. I would have never really dived into his stuff if it hadn't have been for Halloween 4 and the X-Files, because I am a big fan of both of those, that film and that series at least. But I think he's got a solid portfolio. He really has. He's cranked out some good ones over the course of his career. It's not an easy task to stay relevant in an ever-evolving landscape, especially in the age of streaming. Ain't that the truth? But Little's instincts have always guided his creative hand. With his new memoir still rolling inside the Hollywood Dream Factory, the filmmaker walks the reader through various stages of his career, shares insider tips and tricks, and regales with celebrity encounters. Little, whose TV credits also include Prison Break, The Practice, and Bones, muses on the struggles of any filmmaker must confront. How to keep your name in the conversation and make art you truly believe in. Throughout Still Rolling, the writer-director writes candidly about forging relationships, keeping his finger on the pulse of the mainstream, and his adventures around the globe. Below, Bloody Disgusting spoke with Dwight Little about his book, Lessons Learned, and his indie feature, Natty Knocks, and more. I always loved that picture. Just completely side note, I don't know what it is, but that's a cool shot of the shape. I've always thought that was really cool. Now, you can kind of see the eyes and the mask. The mask doesn't look great there, but the mirror effect is pretty cool. I've always dug that. Pretty cool one. So Bloody Disgusting in the article. Time frequently changes perceptions about projects. I immediately thought of how when the new Halloween trilogy came out, many people gained a greater appreciation for those older films, including yours, to which Dwight Little responded, "That's another movie that was not received very well. It did well commercially, but the critic response was not great. I don't know what the expectations were with Michael Myers. There's an initial resistance to that movie, but later over the years, there have been several reissues on DVD and Blu-ray and so forth. And of course, it plays every year, and I think people really love it now. Maybe you're right. Maybe the trilogy made them nostalgic for Halloween 4. Now, I agree with that. I think there's a little bit of it's a little bit of both. There's definitely a nostalgia piece of this whole thing. And of course, the new entries make people look at the previous entries and things like that. But I think Halloween 4 is one of those films that has slowly gained an audience really over the course of the last 15 years or so, since maybe the Rob Zombie stuff, because I think the Halloween fandom really started to blow up. You know, obviously there were fans of it from the 80s and 90s, of course there were, but I think people like my generation who maybe Rob Zombie's films were the bridge into the franchise. I think the older films have slowly gained even more of a fan base, and that's what's so cool about horror, and that's what's so cool about this fandom is it keeps getting new fans. I mean, there are kids that talk about Michael Myers today. Like it's so cool, and it's really cool. Like it's weird because I think you could say that about all of them. He mentioned the fact that, it wasn't received particularly well, like commercially, and the critic response and things like that. But it's like you could say that about many Halloween films. That slowly over the years, people just gain more of an appreciation for it. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's true for many of the entries. So Bloody Disgusting followed up with the recent news that Halloween might be getting a TV series. Would that be something you'd be up to doing? He said, "Oh, definitely. I know Malika Akkad is guiding that, but it's really Universal's play. I mean, I think I would love to do it with Alan McElroy, of course. We'd have to be invited, and I'm sure they have people that they're interested in, so we'll see how it plays out. But sure, I would jump into that in a minute if we could figure out how to make that work." I have thoughts. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. Considering the greater appreciation for Halloween 4, many fans are clamoring for more Rachel and Jamie, particularly a direct sequel to your film. If that would ever come into the conversation, would you do it? He responded, this is where it gets interesting. "Not only would I do it, I've actually pitched it. You keep Rachel alive and follow through with Jamie and Rachel. Ellie Cornell is alive and well and living on the East Coast, and I just worked with Danielle Harris. She's a doll. I think she's think she's a great movie. That's not what I'm supposed to say. I think that's a great movie. I think they should call it Halloween 4 Part 2. I don't like that. If they're going to do something else. Call it something else. Halloween 4 Part 2 just sounds very... It sounds very The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. It's like there's too many names. Stop. We don't need all of that. Too much, like word vomit. Just be upfront about it and say what it is, because that's what it would be. In my own opinion, more than a TV show, I think that would get a lot of attention. And then they go on in the interview. I'll post the link in the comments and in the description if you want to hear him talk about Natty Knocks and the X-Files and some of his other projects and things like that. He goes on. He talks about working with Robert Englund. It's a cool interview, definitely. So I'll post a link to that. I encourage you to go check that out. Now, I have some thoughts on how all of this could potentially work. It does seem like he's interested in the Ellie Cornell, Danielle Harris angle with Rachel and Jamie, and keeping Rachel alive and things like that, and kind of spitballing off of their story and kind of where that would go. But I think, for me, I know people might disagree with me. I know Dwight Little would probably disagree with me, because he's already said he thinks that this should be a film. It should be a theatrical thing, or whether it's on streaming, whatever the case is. And you could argue that a direct sequel to Halloween 4 would work on streaming, but with the odds that the Halloween series, this television series that Malika Akkad is developing, is likely to go to a streaming service, I don't know. I don't know that they would want two different shows, two different universes going on at the same time. That would get messy to me, and I don't know that they would be super into that. Now, to me, there's two different ways that this can go. A, you do what my original idea was for the Halloween series. When we started talking about this, and all of this started to go down, we were talking about what streaming service would get the show, what the story would be. Like, are you going to reboot it? Are you going to bounce off of something else? I had this idea that you could go back and revisit different points in Halloween's lifetime. You could go back and visit Halloween 3. You could go back and visit Halloween 4. You could go back and visit the Cult of Thorn thing. You could go back and revisit Rob Zombie stuff. Now, that's probably too much, and that's probably too Halloween fanboy of me. I think general audiences would probably be like, what in the holy hell is going on? This makes no sense. And rightfully so. If you're not a hardcore Halloween or horror person, you would probably have no idea what was going on. But that was an idea I had. Maybe you do if you had say an 8-episode series, you do one episode you do a Halloween, or a couple episodes, Halloween 3, you do one that's the sequel to Halloween 4 with Ellie Cornell and Danielle Harris, You can make it like an hour and 15 minute, just mini feature, telling different stories from throughout the universe. Like, I would love to see the the opening scene of Halloween H2O with Marion Chambers. And I mean, that is one of the most Halloween October aesthetics of any point of the entire franchise. I've always loved that moment when Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets the ice pick to the face. There's so many good moments at the beginning of that film. There's so many good moments in Rob Zombie's world. There are so many good moments in, the bridge between Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. I mean, there's so much that you could go revisit. It wouldn't, I don't think it would be too much to revisit different points in the franchise. And obviously, you could get Dwight Little to do an episode. You could get him to come back and direct part of that series. So that's option one. Option two would be to go the fan film route. And I know most people are probably rolling their eyes listening to this right now, because you're like, oh my God, we don't need another Halloween fan film. We don't need another horror fan. Hold on a minute. Let me explain this. You look at guys like Vincent DiSanti with Womp Stomp Films. You look at guys like Steve Merlo. You look at guys like Dave McRae and Bruce Dale. There are people that have a real knack and a real passion for the fan film thing, or tribute film thing. Saying fan film with those almost sounds like saying a dirty word. It's not, the word fan film doesn't reflect the quality of what we get with like the Never Hike Alone stuff. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. If you haven't given that stuff a chance, you really need to. Now, I know there are fan films out there that somebody went and filmed in their backyard, and so, you know, whatever. I know that. This is not that. These are people that have raised money, that have actually put in the work and the effort to write a good story, to rent the right equipment, to hire the right people, the actors, the performers, the stunt people, the camera, the whole 9 yards. You could theoretically crowdfund this. Halloween fans would show up in waves. If you told them, if Dwight Little started an Indiegogo campaign tomorrow and said, we have got Ellie Cornell back, we have got Danielle Harris back, I'm gonna write, I'm gonna direct, Malik is on, like, if you came out and said that, Halloween fans would show up in waves to support that. I am not kidding you. Like, that would be a really, really big deal. So that's option 2. So I think those are the 2 big options for me in terms of what you would do if you really did a sequel to Halloween 4. I don't think a theatrical release is on the table. I really don't. Again, you could go the streaming route, but they're going to have the official thing, you know? Whatever that's gonna look like. I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows what that's gonna look like. This is all just speculation at this point. But please comment down below and let me know what you would like to see. How would you like to see a return to the world of Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers? Do you want to see a direct sequel? And if so, how do you think we should revisit that part of the Halloween legacy? Because it's an interesting conversation. So thank you guys so much for watching, for sticking with me. Be sure to leave this video a like. I hope you are safe and warm wherever you are. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at LTM Podcast KY. If you haven't joined the Let's Talk Movies Facebook group, you can type in Let's Talk Movies -community page in the Facebook app, and one of us will let you in. It's a good time over there. We have a great time on this channel, and we're so thankful for all of you. And again, I hope you have an awesome rest of your weekend. I don't know what I'm saying at this point, but have a good one. Peace out. Bye.